I'm here to talk about Art Lessons, Reflections from an Artist's Life, which is a small book that I produced this past year. I wrote it, I designed it, and I published it myself. I've been an artist for about 35 years, so it seemed like a good time to reflect back on what I had learned. And I started as doing calligraphy. I have no formal art training. I was an English major in college, and my love of words is what attracted me to calligraphy. And for a long time, I did mostly interpretive work. I did writers that I loved. I did poems, passages, quotations, and then I did a series that was really what I consider the first work of my own. It was called Childbirth Journey, and it was 15 pieces, and it was all very personal. And when I exhibited it in a gallery, I felt that the wall really wasn't the right place for it. It was too personal, and so I was looking for a more intimate way to work. And that's what led me to the handmade book. And I started with books with text, with calligraphy and type, and then I did a lot of books with photocopier imagery, and then I moved into working with natural materials. And those are from the Spirit books. They are cradles made of branches with books with natural materials resting inside. I think we often think of art lessons as something very tangible. We learn how to work with brushes and paint and ink and pens, but there's also a whole other side to me to art, and that is the emotional side. And so what I was trying to do in this book was to figure out what lessons I learned about that part of making art. And a book that was very important to me was Art and Fear. And so I used a quote from it in there, which I think sort of describes where I was coming from. Put simply, your work is your guide, a complete, comprehensive, limitless reference book on your work. There's no other book, and it is yours alone. And so the idea is I wanted to look at my work and see what I could learn from it. And I decided that I wanted this to be only things that I really knew to be true. And so the book got shorter and shorter as I wrote it. And so I was lucky to find a way to print it, and they're print on demand, so there's just one copy at a time. I found a way to print it that I could work in a small size. And I found that at the Harvard bookstore. This is a book espresso machine. They call it Page M. Gutenberg, the bookmaking robot. And the guy in the back, Jamie, is actually the person who makes it all work. But it's a Rube Goldberg kind of a thing that they work from digital files, and it's printed, it's perfect bound with glue, it's trimmed, and a book comes out, which is pretty amazing. So what I'm going to do is just share a few passages from the book. Each essay starts with a calligraphed quote. And this is from Rose DuBose, my Qigong teacher. And she always says this at some point during our time together. And I feel like the idea of bringing generosity to our work, to ourselves in our work, is really important. I think the critical eye is something that is what makes us able to grow and improve, and this is a very early piece of calligraphy of mine, which has lots of awkward letters and badly formed letters, and it was that ability to not just train my hand, but to train my eye to see what I was doing wrong, to be able to correct it, that enabled me to eventually get to the point where I could make much more fluid letters like this G. But I think we have to be careful, because that critical thing that is so important at some phases, if we let that be the way we look at our work too deeply and too strongly, it can really stop us from moving ahead and growing. Let us borrow empty vessels is a quote from Meister Eckhart, who was a medieval mystic, and I first learned of that through the book The Gift by Lewis Hyde, which has been really influential to me. The idea is that art is a gift, and we need to empty ourselves so that we're able to receive the gift. And I think a really great way to look at that is something that's very elemental to us all, the breath. And the idea that not only do we take it in, but we have to let all the breath out. If you're doing a true deep breath, you let everything out before you can then fill it up again. And if we can sometime keep that consciousness with us, that's a good thing.